Deepak, you initiated on the internet sector for Cantor in September of this year. Could you maybe expand on why you're fundamentally constructive on the sector outlook?
Yeah. So when we think about our sectors, we try to evaluate our space on 5 different dimensions or vectors, if you will. One, we think about our sectors as a space that has significant amount of secular growth left. Obviously, internet as a space has been around for 15 years, and certainly the mobile internet evolution 10 years ago increased the user base of internet to over billions of users, both in Western markets and in emerging markets. But if you think about the use cases that are built on top of internet, there's still significant amount of runway left in terms of time spent in the internet, in terms of transactions that are happening over the internet, in terms of consumer services booked in the internet. So our space has significant amount of secular growth opportunity ahead that should keep the growth rate for our large players at a healthy levels going forward. That's number one. Number two, in the last few years, the competitive dynamics in our space have stabilized at a very healthy levels. In the last, say, 2 to 3 years, we've seen the winners and losers differentiate themselves both from a product standpoint and scale standpoint. And the competitive intensity is very benign, which is compelling for investors. Number 3, the market share dynamics that is stemming from competitive dynamics is also at a very stable place. You're seeing share gains by larger players in the space. Some of the smaller subscale players are innovating consistently, but are also competing with stable market share. Number 4, all this feeds into profitability and margin dynamics. During the COVID years, many of our companies saw margins erode because of heavy investments in tapping into some of the COVID tailwinds. But now, on the other side of it, cost efforts are at a very healthy place, and what we are seeing is sustained margin expansion from companies in our universe across many different subsectors, which is very compelling for investors when they think about the opportunity the sector presents. Lastly, shareholder returns. Internet companies historically were not thought of as companies who would deploy buybacks and dividends, but now many of our companies are also trying to tap into some of those avenues to really create value for shareholders. So those are the main 5 factors that we think about as why our space is compelling from a fundamental standpoint.
That's great. And I suppose in terms of your coverage, it's very broad. You've got names in there ranging from Amazon to Meta. Can you talk about, I suppose, what are the key drivers that are going to separate the sectoral winners and losers into 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, great question. So I will start off by saying, in our space, the number one driver of what builds competitive moats is healthy product innovation. If you think about our companies that have distanced themselves ahead of smaller players in the space, product velocity, being able to use their engineering expertise to improve the user experience and transactional capabilities on their platforms has been the leading driver of what builds those competitive moats. Clearly, with better products, many companies have also been able to build scale, and that feeds into another form of a competitive advantage that some of these companies now fully enjoy. And then lastly, the evolution of new technologies cannot be discounted, right? Like AI, since the evolution of mobile internet is one of the more powerful themes that we're seeing currently. Successful companies in our space are going to leverage new emerging technologies, including AI, and further extend their competitive moats. So what you're going to see in the next few years in terms of winners distinguishing themselves from both share donors or even both in the online and in the offline world are going to leverage these 3 capabilities strongly in their businesses.
If you'd like to find out more about our global sector coverage, please get in touch with your Cantor representative.